Hello and welcome to this edition of Bayou Time. I'm your host, Keith Weissite, licensed clinical social worker with Terrebonne Home Care. Very glad you're joining us. However you may be joining us, we appreciate it very much. And we always like to bring to you updated information as we have some of the most wonderful people working in law enforcement here in our area. Always glad to welcome in with Lafourche Parish Sheriff's Office, Captain Brendan Mathern. Brendan, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having us, Keith, as always.
All right, I appreciate it. Look, man, I know you guys work so hard and diligently. I compliment all the time, but being able to work with your fellow organizations is just one of those things that law enforcement in our area, you guys get it right because y'all can work so well together. This is another good example.
Yeah, Keith, I know we've talked about this many times when we've been on here, but, law enforcement agencies working together is nothing new. And certainly there's no lack of cooperation throughout the country. With that said, we definitely take it to a different level here in the Lafourche and Terrebonne area. If I could speak for my brothers over in Terrebonne, specifically in this particular case, we teamed up with the Thibodeau Police Department on a narcotics investigation and made two arrests. 31-year-old Corbin Butler and 43-year-old Ray Jackson Jr., both of them from Thibodeau, were arrested last week. Now, we had been working with Thibodeau Police with regard to the Butler investigation. We were actually investigating Butler. We obtained a couple of distribution warrants for him, as well as a search warrant for his Thibodeau apartment. And when we went to the apartment to execute the search warrant, we found Butler, immediately placed him under arrest. We also found Jackson there, who had outstanding contempt of court warrants for previous drug charges. So he was placed under arrest as well. During the search, we found over 700 grams of marijuana, wow, as well as dozens of Adderall pills, Percocet, various items that were sent our way, that we ultimately found in that search warrant, as well as a couple of handguns, one of which was reported stolen. So when you start adding up all of those charges, it led to a litany of charges for Corbin Butler and a few charges for Ray Jackson as well. Specifically, he had 2 counts of distribution of heroin and a distribution of heroin and fentanyl, because one of the items we found, items commonly used to mix fentanyl and heroin. So he actually got charged with creation or operation of a clandestine laboratory for unlawful manufacture of CDS, something that you commonly see meth labs associated with it. He was also charged with illegal possession of a stolen firearm, possession of a firearm by a convicted felon, carrying a weapon in the presence of drugs, illegal use of drugs in the presence of a juvenile, as there was a juvenile on scene as well, and charged with possession with intent to distribute heroin, marijuana, Adderall, Xanax, and hydrocodone. So that's Butler's charges. And then Jackson, of course, had the contempt charges, as well as he had heroin in his possession. Possession with intent to distribute heroin was the charge for him. Illegal use of drugs in the presence of a child as well. Butler's bail is set at $293,000, and Jackson's bail is set at $361,600. So ultimately, a multitude of charges for these two individuals. And really, Keith, it just shows you why the drug game is such a dangerous game. It's not just like you're arrested for drugs, or you're arrested for gun possession, or even just a stolen gun. You see all of the different charges that you have to violate when you have a stolen weapon in the presence of drugs. You have a child on scene, which, by the way, allowed us to show their mugshots here. That was the only charge, was the possession or the use of a controlled dangerous substance in the presence of a juvenile. That is one of the qualifying charges for mugshots. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been able to post their mugshot. So again, just a litany of charges for these two individuals, just showing the great work between the Thibodeau Police Department and Lafourche Parish Sheriff's Office.
And again, being able to identify all of those problem areas, right? But you talk about the fact that a lot of these criminals have so many different areas of concern. And now we've got both of these guys off the street, and so many charges that you can't really get away from. And fortunately for the public, they get to see these individuals with the mugshots because of those particular charges. And again, there on the left, Corbin Butler; on the right, Ray Jackson Jr., as we're so very glad that Captain Brendan Mathern has been able to share with us all of the different charges that go with them, putting so many people in harm's way, and the fentanyl and the paraphernalia for them to be able to combine those drugs with fentanyl, which we know is a big area of concern with it's killing people in our area.
And that's probably the big takeaway from this arrest, other than to get those names and photos out there to make the public aware. The biggest issue for the public is mixing the fentanyl with these drugs. Now, obviously, the reason they're doing that is to give people a bigger high from it. The problem is that you have a bunch of amateurs doing this, and ultimately amateurs using it, not only mixing it but using it, and ultimately that's leading to overdoses and in some cases potential deaths. Not to say that there was ever a good time to buy drugs, but this is certainly one of the worst times. If you're buying drugs that are not from a pharmacy or prescribed by your doctor, you have no idea what is in them, no idea what people have mixed together. And so it's just one more of about a billion reasons to stay away from them.
Right. And just, again, educating the public and just knowing some of the risk factors that we have. And so we appreciate all of that information as, again, those two individuals, Corbin Butler and Ray Jackson, now have been arrested in a joint effort with Lafourche Parish Sheriff's Office and Thibodaux Police Department, and getting them off the street and hopefully bringing them to justice with all of those things that have created problems in our area. Brendan, we thank you so very much, as always, so very kind in bringing us this information, always kind to come on and bring the information to the public.
Thank you, Keith. We appreciate you guys having us.
All right. And that will do it for this particular segment. Don't go anywhere. A whole lot more Bayou time right here on HTV.